I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am laying it all out. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Lisa for about 10 years now. We had a pretty normal life, 2 kids, decent jobs, a nice little house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but comfortable enough. We were that typical couple everyone envied, or so I thought. Lately, though, I'd started noticing small things. Lisa was acting weird. She was more irritable than usual, snapping at me over the tiniest things, and she'd spend a lot more time on her phone, sneaking around and hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd say she was talking to her sister, which I bought at first. But then I caught her deleting messages, clearing her browser history. Little stuff. It was things I'd ignored or brushed off because I didn't want to believe the worst about my wife. We also had this basement renovation going on. Our house is old, and the basement was always just a dark, unfinished mess. I decided to get it redone, thinking it'd be a good place for the kids to hang out or for us to have friends over. We hired a contractor, a guy named Jake. He's a decent guy, or at least I thought so. He showed up regularly, did his work, and seemed professional enough. But I started noticing something strange about the work. Things were moving faster than they should have. I mean, way faster. Usually, these renovations take a month or two, right? Well, Jake was finishing the entire basement in less than 3 weeks. It was weird. I didn't say anything at first. Maybe I was just impressed by how quickly they were getting it done. But then I noticed something else. Lisa started acting nervous whenever I asked questions about the basement. She'd brush me off, saying I was overthinking. She'd even get bitchy, throwing attitude when I pressed her about the contractors as if I was suspicious. It was so unlike her to be defensive. The more she pushed back, the more I felt this gnawing suspicion growing inside me. One night, I decided to check the security cameras I'd installed after some recent thefts in the neighborhood. I figured I'd review the footage of the basement area, see if I could catch anyone sneaking around or doing anything. Strange, what I found was shocking. I saw her. Lisa in the basement late at night, and she wasn't alone. She was with Jake. I froze when I saw it. They weren't just talking, they were kissing, touching, making out like a couple of teenagers. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, cheating on me with the contractor we hired to do our basement. I watched the footage over and over, trying to make sense of it. My stomach sank. I felt numb, then furious. How could she do this? After all these years, after all the times I've supported her, loved her, tried to be a good husband. And it wasn't just a one-time thing either. The videos showed multiple nights, different times, always with Jake. That bastard. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I had to plan my move carefully. I needed to see her reaction in person, face to face. But inside, I was already thinking about everything. How betrayed I felt, how stupid I'd been for trusting her blindly. I didn't sleep much that night, just replayed what I saw, trying to understand how she could lie to my face so convincingly. And I knew deep down that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I kept replaying the footage in my head, trying to find some logical explanation for what I saw, but there wasn't one. Lisa, my wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted for so long, was cheating on me. With Jake, the guy we hired to do our basement. It was surreal. The kind of thing you see in movies, not your real life. I spent the day trying to act normal, going through the motions. But inside, I was a mess. Every time I looked at her, I saw the lies and betrayal flashing behind her eyes. Her words, her smiles, they all felt like a facade. I couldn't get the images out of my head, and I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let this happen. For years, I'd been a good husband, a good father, and she'd been cheating on me the whole time. That afternoon, I decided I couldn't hold back anymore. I needed to confront her. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my voice steady. When she walked in, I just looked at her and said, "Lisa, I need to talk. Can we sit down?" She looked at me with her usual bitchy attitude, rolling her eyes. "What now, Mike? Can't you see I'm busy? What is it this time?" I took a deep breath. "I know about you and Jake. I saw the footage. I know you've been lying to me. How long has this been going on?" She scoffed, crossing her arms. Oh, please, you're imagining things. You're just jealous because Jake is fixing up the basement and you're acting paranoid. You're overreacting as usual. Don't lie to me, I said, voice rising. I saw you kissing him multiple nights. Your phone records the footage. How could you lie to my face? Her face turned red, then she started yelling. It's none of your business. You're paranoid, insecure, and you don't know what you're talking about. Jake is just doing his job, and I don't owe you any explanations. That was the moment. I realized she wasn't going to admit anything easily. She was good at lying and she knew how to turn things around, but I wasn't going to back down. I told her, if this is how it's going to be, then I want a divorce. I can't be married to someone who's been cheating on me, lying to my face and treating me like I'm nothing. She looked at me, surprised for a split second, then sneered. Fine, do whatever you want. You're just overreacting. Honestly, I don't care anymore. You're not the man I married anyway. That's when I saw the truth in her eyes. She didn't care about us, didn't care about me. It felt like a punch in the gut. I'd spent years making this marriage work and she'd been playing me for a fool all along. I felt so hurt, so betrayed, that I didn't know whether to cry or scream. Instead, I just told her to pack her things, that I wanted her out of the house. Later that night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty space where she used to sit. My mind was racing. I knew I had to do something about this. I couldn't let her just walk away like nothing had happened. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was determined to get some kind of revenge. Not just for me, but for the years I wasted trusting her, loving her blindly. The plan started forming in my head. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She'd betrayed me, disrespected everything we'd built. She was going to pay. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I had to make her regret ever climbing into bed with that asshole Jake. No matter what, I was going to make sure she understood that she couldn't cheat and lie without consequences. Today, I realize, is just the beginning. The fallout is coming, and I'm ready for it. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and planning. I spent most of my time reviewing everything I had, those videos, her texts, and her calls. I couldn't believe how thick her lies had been. She insisted she was just stressed or busy, but every excuse sounded hollow now. The truth was staring me right in the face, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I also started paying closer attention to her routine. She'd leave early in the morning, come back late, and often had her phone glued to her hand. She'd disappear into the bathroom for long stretches and then come out with that fake smile, pretending everything was fine. It was infuriating to see her so good at hiding her betrayal, but I knew I had to be smarter. I couldn't just confront her again without solid proof. One night, I decided to do my own little investigation. I installed a GPS app on her phone, something I'd never thought I'd do, but at that point I was desperate for answers. I kept an eye on her location, and what I saw was even worse than I expected. She was meeting Jake again, late at night at a hotel a few towns over. They weren't just sneaking around my basement, they were out there, openly cheating. I felt my blood boil. The idea that she'd been lying to me all this time, pretending to be innocent, was unbearable. That same night, I found a way to get into her email account. I knew it was risky, but I was done playing nice. I dug through her messages and found a treasure trove of lies, flirty texts, explicit photos, plans for secret meetups. She'd been planning some of these encounters for weeks, maybe even months. All the while, she was telling me she loved me, acting like everything was normal. I felt like I didn't even know her anymore. The worst part was the way she lied when I confronted her about some of it. I showed her the messages, the location history, the videos. She looked me dead in the eyes and laughed, saying I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that she was just talking to Jake because he was helping with the basement. That woman was a professional liar. She knew how to spin her stories, how to make me doubt my own sanity. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she do this to me, to us? I'd always been the one to provide, to support, to love unconditionally. And now I found out she'd been playing me for a fool, sneaking around, screwing some guy while pretending everything was fine. It was like the ground had shifted beneath my feet, and I was left trying to balance on the edge of an emotional cliff. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't go on like this, living in a house with her, pretending everything was okay. I was furious, but part of me was also devastated. I started thinking about the life I wanted, one free from lies, betrayal, and a wife who didn't care anymore. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending, so I began planning my next move. I wasn't just going to kick her out and call it a day. No, I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I wanted her to understand that she'd crossed a line she could never come back from. If she thought she could cheat and lie her way out of it, she was dead wrong. I was determined to make her regret ever messing with my trust. The next step was to gather everything, proof of her infidelity, all my recordings, her messages. I needed to be ready for the inevitable confrontation. I also knew I had to stay calm, no matter how much I was boiling inside, because once I said my piece, there was no going back. The betrayal was too deep, and I was starting to realize that this wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about my dignity, my self-respect. And I was done letting her take it away from me without a fight. The night I finally decided to confront her, I felt like I was walking into a war zone. My hands were trembling, but I forced myself to stay calm. I knew that if I let my anger take over completely, I'd lose control, maybe say things I'd regret or make her double down on her lies. I had to be strategic. She was in the kitchen when I got home, pouring herself a glass of wine. She looked up, saw me standing there, and immediately put on that fake, innocent smile. I didn't buy it. Not anymore. Without saying a word, I pulled out my phone and played the videos I'd saved, the footage I'd collected over the last few days. Her face went pale, her eyes darted around, and her composure cracked. Why did you do this? I demanded, voice low but firm. How long has this been going on? Her mouth opened, then closed. For a moment she looked like she was going to lie again, but she knew I had the evidence. Her chin quivered, and then she shot back with her usual defiance. It's not what you think. I was just bored, and Jake, he's just a contractor. It meant nothing. It's not like I love him or anything. I almost laughed at that. It meant nothing. You're sneaking around in our basement, kissing him, and you say it's just nothing. How stupid do you think I am? She started crying then, tears streaming down her face like I'd never seen before. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was just lonely, okay? It's not like I wanted to hurt you. I swear I was just looking for something different. I didn't think it would turn into this mess. I felt a cold fury run through me. She was lying again, always lying. She'd been lying for weeks, maybe months. And yet, hearing her cry, seeing her break down, part of me felt a sick kind of pity, but most of all, I felt betrayed in a way I could explain. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was a stranger. She'd been unfaithful, sneaking around, lying about everything. I stepped closer, voice shaking but controlled. Don't give me that. I saw the videos. I saw how you were with him. And I know you've been planning this for a while, so just tell me the truth. Are you in love with him? Or are you just some bored woman who likes to cheat? She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen, and for a moment she didn't say anything. Then she whispered, I don't know, I was stupid. I thought I could have both. I thought I could keep you and have Jake too, but I guess I was wrong. That cut me deeper than anything. Hearing her admit she's been cheating, lying, and screwing around with some guy while acting like she loved me, I felt like my whole world was shattering. I wanted to yell, to break something, but I held back. Instead, I told her she had to leave. Now, pack her things and don't come back. She begged, of course. Said she'd stop, that she'd change, that she loved me. But I knew better. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't lie and sneak around behind someone's back. And I wasn't about to be a fool anymore. I told her she had to go, and she finally left, slamming the door behind her. Once she was gone, I sat on the couch, trembling. The house felt emptier than it ever had. All the years, all the memories we shared, they suddenly felt hollow. I looked around at the place she'd helped build, and for a moment I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. But what I did know was this. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I wasn't going to let her destroy my sense of trust and my self-respect. She betrayed me, yes, but I was going to make sure she remembered the price of her betrayal. That night, I started planning my next move, how to get her out of my life for good, and how to protect whatever was left of my dignity. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to come to terms with the reality I was facing. I lost my wife, my partner, the woman I thought I knew, but I also gained clarity. saw her true colors, and I knew I'd never let her do this to me again. It's a brutal lesson, but sometimes the hardest truths are the ones you need to face. And now I was more determined than ever to take back control of my life. The days after she left were the hardest. I felt hollow, like a part of me had been ripped out. Every corner of the house reminded me of her, her voice, her smile, her lies. I kept going over everything, trying to understand how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. Honestly, I didn't sleep much. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. I knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to act. First, I contacted a lawyer. I wanted to make sure I was protected legally, especially with the house and the kids involved. I wasn't about to be the guy who gets screwed over financially while she runs off to her new guy. I also started thinking about how to handle the divorce. I wanted her out of my life completely, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about protecting myself and making sure I kept my dignity intact. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her phone, her emails, her social media. I was looking for even more proof, anything I could use if she tried to deny everything later on. I found some messages she'd deleted, but I managed to recover a few. She was planning to meet Jake again that week, talking about spicing things up, as she put it. That was the last straw. I knew I had to confront her once more, but this time I wanted to do it on my terms. I reached out to some of her close friends, trying to get a clearer picture of her recent behavior. The stuff I heard confirmed that she'd been hiding a lot: secret calls, late nights, disappearing acts. It all added up. She'd been living a double life, and I was just the fool who got played. One afternoon, I decided to meet her to talk face to face. I told her I needed to discuss some things about the house and the kids. She looked surprised but agreed, probably thinking I was just trying to keep everything amicable, maybe get some sort of settlement, but I had a different plan. I told her she needed to be honest, no more lies, no more pretending. I said I knew everything, and if she wanted any shot at saving whatever was left of her credibility, she'd come clean. She looked furious. Her eyes flashed with anger and contempt. "You're crazy," she spat. "You think you're so smart, huh? You have no idea what you're talking about." But I kept going. "I saw the videos, all of it. You with Jake sneaking around. I know you've been lying for months. So just tell me, is this what you wanted, to cheat on me, to ruin this marriage?" Her face twisted into a mixture of rage and guilt, but she refused to admit anything. Instead, she started throwing accusations my way, saying I was controlling, insecure, that I didn't understand her. It was classic Lisa: defend, deny, deflect. But I knew her game. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I told her I was done. Done with her lies, her cheating, her acting like she was the victim. If she wanted to walk away, that was fine. But I was going to make sure she left with nothing: no money, no house, no support from me. I was tired of being the fool, tired of getting played. That was the turning point. I finally stood up for myself, decided to take control of my life. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was tired of feeling helpless. I had to cut her out completely to start healing. Whether that meant going through a bitter divorce or just shutting the door on her forever, I didn't care. I was done chasing illusions. The truth was out, and now I had to face the aftermath and rebuild what I could from this wreckage. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into sorting out the mess. The lawyer drew up the divorce papers, and I made it clear I wanted her out of the house ASAP. I didn't want her lingering around, pretending everything was fine, while I was still trying to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. When she finally left, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief that I finally took back some control, and emptiness because I realized how deeply I'd been betrayed. I spent a lot of nights lying awake, thinking about all the years I'd dedicated to making that relationship work, only to find out she'd been planning her escape behind my back. It made me question everything about trust, love, and how blind I'd been. But over time, that anger started to fade, replaced by a cautious hope. I knew I'd never forget what happened, but I also knew I had to move on better, stronger. The hardest part was rebuilding my self-esteem. I had spent so long giving my love and loyalty, and for what? To be lied to, cheated on, and used as a fool. It hurt. But I also learned that I was stronger than I thought. I started focusing on myself, on my kids, and on creating a life that didn't revolve around her lies. I got back into working out, reconnected with old friends, and finally found peace in being alone. Looking back, I realized that some of the most important lessons come from the worst experiences. I learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to the little red flags I'd ignored before. I learned that love isn't just about giving, but also about respect and honesty. Most of all, I learned that revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your own dignity and self-worth. Now, I can honestly say I'm better off without her. I don't hate her. I'm just grateful that I finally saw her true colors before it was too late. I've come to accept that some people are just not meant to be in your life forever, no matter how much you wish they were. And I've learned to cherish myself enough not to settle for less than I deserve. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs, and don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. It's painful, sure, but it's also a wake-up call. You're better than any betrayal, and someday you'll look back and see this as the moment you took control and started living for yourself again. That's what I've learned from all of this. And honestly, it's the best lesson I could have ever received.